Once upon a time, a woman walked into a man's world, and together, they created a love story that millions believed would last forever. But what if the fairy tale didn't end? What if the story had one more chapter waiting to be told? It was the love story that changed everything. Vivian, the spirited dreamer who dared to believe in something better. Edward, the powerful man who thought he had it all until he realized he had nothing without her. Together they weren't just a couple, they were a symbol of hope, of courage, of love breaking through walls of money, pride, and fear. A slow montage flashes, Vivian's radiant smile, Edward's quiet, thoughtful gaze, the iconic image of him climbing the fire escape with roses. The music swells, reminding the audience of a time when their hearts were swept away. It has been more than 30 years since the fairy tale began. Time has passed. Life has changed. The world is not the same. And neither are they. The visuals grow darker, more modern, more reflective. We see empty champagne glasses on a polished table, a lonely man's silhouette against a city skyline, and a woman walking down a bustling street, confident and strong, yet her eyes holding a hint of longing. Edward Lewis, once a man of power and influence, now finds himself surrounded by everything money can buy, but haunted by the one thing it never could, a love he let slip away. Vivian Ward, once a dreamer, has built her own path, independent, respected, a woman who no longer waits for rescue, because she learned to rescue herself. And yet, in the quiet moments, both wonder if fate ever truly lets go. The music shifts into a softer, bittersweet piano. We see shadows of the past Vivian twirling in her red dress. Edward's limousine waiting outside the hotel, laughter echoing faintly. Pretty Woman was never just a story about a man and a woman. It was about second chances, about daring to believe that love can heal, that love can transform. And now the question remains, do Vivian and Edward get a second chance of their own? The trailer-style narration grows stronger, more urgent. This is not the past repeating itself. This is not the same story told again. This is a new chapter. A chapter about love and middle age, about facing regrets, about the choices we made, and the choices we still have left to make. Quick flashes, Vivian laughing at a crowded event, Edward closing a deal with a forced smile, Vivian looking at an old photograph hidden in a drawer, Edward running his hand over a forgotten letter. Because sometimes love doesn't end. It waits, it hides in the spaces between years. It lingers in the silence, in the memories, in the what-ifs that never truly go away. And when destiny decides the time has come, it will bring two souls back together. Whether they are ready or not, the scene fades into black. Only the sound of a heartbeat and a whisper remain. Pretty Woman 2, a second chance for Vivian and Edward. The words appear on screen in bold, glowing letters as the music builds to a crescendo, because love stories never truly end. They just wait to be continued. Asterisk fairy tales tell us that after love's first kiss comes happily ever after, but real life is far more complicated. We see Edward Lewis now. Older, sharper, his hair touched with silver, his face lined with the kind of weariness that no luxury can erase. He sits in a corner office high above the city, surrounded by glass walls and endless meetings. His name still commands respect. His business empire has only grown, but the man himself feels hollow. He glances at an untouched glass of wine, his hand resting on a pen, pausing over a letter he never sends. Edward built an empire that touched every corner of the city. But in the silence of his own life he has begun to realize, success means nothing without someone to share it with. A sharp cut, the crowded noise of a hotel ballroom, lights glittering off chandeliers, laughter rising from every corner. Here we meet Vivian again. She walks in, strong and elegant, no longer the uncertain dreamer from decades ago. Her presence commands attention. She is respected, admired, a woman who has transformed her past into power. Yet, in her eyes, there is a flicker of something unresolved, something unspoken. Vivian Ward is no longer waiting for permission to be seen. She is her own story now. She has carved her own world on her own terms. Yet even the strongest heart remembers, and in quiet moments the past whispers back. The montage continues. Vivian shares a laugh with friends at a charity gala. She smiles as she gives a speech about resilience and second chances. But when the applause fades, we see her alone, staring at a photograph tucked in her purse, a picture of her younger self, arm in arm with Edward. She closes it quickly, her smile returning. But the audience has already seen the truth. The narrator's tone grows heavier. For years, they have lived apart. Different paths, different choices. But destiny has a way of weaving old souls back into each other's stories. Suddenly, the camera lingers on Edward standing at the edge of the same gala, his eyes finding Vivian across the room. The air shifts. The crowd around them blurs into nothing. Time seems to freeze. His face shows surprise, regret, longing, everything at once. Vivian notices him. Her confident expression falters for a fraction of a second. Before she quickly looks away, a piano note echoes soft and trembling. One night. One glance. And the past comes rushing back. We see flashes. Edward rehearsing what to say in a mirror but failing to speak. Vivian refusing his call, her hand trembling as she sets her phone aside. Both lying awake in separate beds, staring at the ceiling, memories keeping them restless, but the story is not simple. The world has changed. New obstacles stand between them. A younger rival in Edward's company challenges his influence, whispering that the old ways no longer matter. Vivian, meanwhile, is courted by a man who admires her independence, offering her a life untouched by the shadows of her past. They are no longer the same people who once believed in fairy tales. He is a man burdened by regrets. She is a woman who refuses to be rescued. And yet the question lingers. Are they willing to risk everything for one more chance at love? The music swells, more urgent now. We see glimpses of conflict. Edward arguing with board members as his business begins to slip. Vivian walking away from a romantic dinner, tears in her eyes. Edward standing outside her home, rain falling. But unable to knock on the door, the narrator's voice carries the weight of inevitability. Because love doesn't simply disappear. It waits, it tests. It demands courage once more. And now, both must face the greatest challenge of all, not winning the world, but daring to win each other again. The screen fades to black, leaving only the sound of Edward's voice breaking the silence. Vivian, I never stopped, her voice answers, quiet but filled with pain. And I never forgot. The music cuts suddenly, leaving the audience breathless. Asterisk. The screen explodes with sound and orchestra rising as if the city itself were alive with tension. A storm rolls over the skyline, thunder echoing like a warning. Then silence. The image shifts to Edward and Vivian, standing across from one another in a quiet corner of a grand ballroom, the crowd fading into a blur around them. Their eyes lock, and for the first time in decades, the past and present collide. Some stories don't end when the curtain falls. They simply wait for the actors to return. The narrator's voice weaves through the images. Edward stepping forward, Vivian stepping back, the fragile distance between them heavy with memories. A flash of their younger selves, her in the red dress, him on the fire escape flickers like ghosts behind their older faces. We cut to Edward sitting in his car late at night, rain hitting the windshield, gripping the steering wheel as if holding back words he can't say. Vivian, on the other side of the city, sits at her vanity, staring at her reflection, whispering to herself, "Don't go back. Don't go back." Yet her eyes betray the truth. She still feels the pull. The montage sharpens. Vivian and Edward bump into each other again, this time at a charity board meeting. The tension is undeniable. She speaks with confidence, challenging his opinion, the room watching with awe at her strength. He stares at her, not with anger, but with admiration, as though realizing she has grown into everything he once wished for her, but the obstacles deepen. A rival businessman in Edward's company is plotting against him, painting him as outdated, distracted, vulnerable. Vivian faces her own dilemma, a suitor who respects her independence but wants to claim her future, a man who can offer her stability without the scars of the past. Old wounds resurface. New battles begin. And the greatest fight is not against the world, but against their own hearts. The music swells into something faster, more chaotic. We see Edward losing his temper in a boardroom, papers scattered, his voice breaking as he says, "You think I care about losing? The only thing I lost that ever mattered was her." Then Vivian, standing alone in her apartment, clutching a letter Edward once wrote but never sent. Tears streak her face as she whispers, "Why now? Why after all this time?" Quick flashes cut between them, Vivian walking out of a restaurant, heels clicking angrily against the pavement. Edward chasing her down a rain-soaked street, calling her name. Vivian turning back for just a second before disappearing into a cab. Edward slamming his hand against the door. His face breaking with despair, the narrator's voice tightens, urgent, emotional. They know the risks. They know the pain. But what they cannot escape is the truth that never died. Suddenly the tone softens. We see Vivian and Edward laughing together, just for a moment during a stolen afternoon. A shared glance across a crowded cafe. The warmth of his hand brushing against hers. The spark is still there, alive, undeniable, but just as quickly, conflict strikes again. Vivian confronts him. "You think you can just walk back into my life, Edward? I built myself without you." Her voice shakes with both strength and sorrow. Edward replies, broken but firm. "And I never stopped loving you." The music crashes with violins and drums, creating a storm of emotion. We see them at their worst, arguing in the rain, crying behind closed doors, pushing each other away. Yet always, always being pulled back together, because love is not simple. Love is not safe. Love demands everything, your pride, your fear, your scars. And the chance to lose it all again, the montage hits its peak, Vivian running through a crowded street, Edward following. Vivian collapsing into a chair, her face in her hands. Edward smashing a glass in rage. Both of them standing inches apart, breathless, but too afraid to touch. The narrator whispers over the chaos. Can they forgive? Can they trust? Can they dare to believe? One more time? The screen cuts to black. A single image fades in, Vivian and Edward, standing at opposite ends of a bridge, walking toward each other as the city lights glow behind them. The music holds trembling before dropping into silence. Asterisk, the screen is black. A single sound breaks the silence, the echo of Vivian's heels striking pavement in the rain. Each step is sharp, defiant, desperate. Suddenly, headlights cut through the darkness, and Edward's car screeches to a halt beside her. He jumps out, soaked by the storm, his voice cracking. "Vivian, wait!" The camera lingers on her face torn between fury and heartbreak. She hesitates, the rain dripping down her cheeks. Hiding the tears, the narrator's voice cuts in, softer now but filled with gravity. When love refuses to die, it demands a choice. The music swells, violins trembling with urgency. Quick flashes burst across the screen like lightning. Vivian standing on a balcony at sunset, clutching her chest as if trying to silence her heart. Edward arguing with his board, slamming his hand on the table. "I've given my whole life to this company. And it cost me everything that mattered." Vivian walking through an art gallery, stopping before a painting of a woman reaching for something just out of frame, her own reflection caught in the glass. Edward alone in his office, ripping a photograph of them in half, only to fall to his knees, staring at the pieces. The pace quickens, the stakes climbing higher. We hear Vivian's voice, trembling with anger. "You think love is enough to fix 30 years, Edward? Love doesn't erase the mistakes. It doesn't erase the pain." Edward shouts back, raw and unguarded. "No, it doesn't. But it's the only thing that ever made us real." A drumbeat crashes. The screen floods with images. Vivian running through a crowded airport, tears streaming down her face. Edward chasing after her, weaving through people, shouting her name. Vivian pausing at the gate, her hand hovering over the boarding pass. Edward reaching out, breathless, desperate, the narrator's voice deepens, every word heavy with destiny. 2 lives. 2 choices. 1 chance to rewrite everything. The music rises into a crescendo, an overwhelming storm of strings and drums. Flashes of the climax hit like lightning strikes, Edward grabbing Vivian's hand in the pouring rain. Vivian pulling away, then collapsing into his arms. A candlelit room where they argue, laugh, cry all in one breath. Vivian whispering through tears. I don't know if I can survive losing you again. Edward answering, broken but resolute. Then don't let me go. The screen suddenly slows, images moving in soft motion. Vivian and Edward stand inches apart, faces lit by the glow of city lights, the world around them fading into silence. His hand brushes against hers. Her lips tremble. For a heartbeat, the world holds still. Then, cut to black, the narrator's voice. Now a whisper, Pretty Woman 2, a second chance for Vivian and Edward. Golden letters flash across the dark screen. Bold and luminous. The music falls into a single piano note, slow and haunting. Because some love stories don't end, they wait. For the moment, we are brave enough to begin again. The final image, Vivian and Edward standing on a bridge at dawn, the first light of morning painting the sky. They walk toward each other. Just before they meet, the screen fades out, leaving only silence. A heartbeat sound pulses once, twice, and then the words appear, coming soon.